Okay, so we are ready to start Wit and Wisdom. And remember yesterday I told you that we added our word soar to our word wall. So now we have 4 words that we've talked about. Force, which it means to work hard, push or pull something with a lot of strength. Equator, which is the middle of the earth. It's that imaginary line around the middle of the earth that's very warm. Powerful means to be able to do something using a lot of strength or a lot of force. And then soar means to fly high without a problem, to fly high easily without doing a lot of work. So our job is to be able to figure out how the wind is a powerful force. And so we've got this book that is helping us figure out how wind can be a powerful force. So today we're going to continue looking in our book to find the main idea using the details from our text. So if you remember a couple days ago, we did this and we talked about, we looked at the front cover and we said, yeah, this whole book, everything about the book has to do with wind. Yes, I totally agree. Everything has to do with the wind. So then what we did was we broke it up into certain parts and we found details and we used those details to figure out what the main topic was. So our first 4 pages had to do with using your senses. You can see the wind, you can feel the wind, you can hear the wind. So you can use all your senses to experience the wind. Then we looked at our next set of pages and we said that we learned wind is actually made when a certain thing happens. When the warm air rises and the cold air drops in. So when that warm and when the warm and cold air switch places, that's how wind is made. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the 3rd section of our book and the 4th section of our book, and we're going to try to find the main idea using those details. So I'm going to start us off, and we are going to turn to page 16. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read these pages to you, and I want you to be thinking, what do I learn? What are the details the author is giving me that I didn't already know about the wind? Okay? Are we ready? Here we go. Some winds blow gently and others blow fast. You can see how fast the winds are blowing by watching how things around you move. A gentle wind makes leaves dance. A stronger wind might flap clothes on a line. A very strong wind can make even heavy trees bend and sway. Storms like hurricanes bring the strongest winds of all. Storm winds may blow very fast, more than 100 miles per hour. That's about twice as fast as cars can go on the highway. These winds are strong enough to knock down trees. You can see how strong the wind is by doing an experiment, and you can do this today. With a bicycle, stand so that the wind is blowing in your face. Now ride into the wind. Feel how hard it is to pedal. Then turn your bicycle around and ride with the wind, pushing you along. Isn't it easier to pedal now? So, what are some things that we learned about the wind? Can you name some things that you learned? Oh, yeah, wind. It can be really strong. So wind can be strong. That's exactly right. Good. What else did you learn? Wind can be gentle. Remember it talked about those leaves just dancing? So wind can be gentle. Okay, what else? Ooh, think about the trees. What was it doing to the trees? It could bend and sway and even break the trees, right? It can move things. Think about that little girl. What was she on? She was on her bike, right? And sometimes going against the wind is so hard. But when you're riding with the wind, it's kind of, woo, go, right? Even we've done that outside. Sometimes when the wind is blowing in our face, it's harder to run. But when you run with the wind and the wind is blowing your hair, it kind of like pushes you, right? So what do you notice about all of our details? They all have wind in them. Yeah. It can be strong, yes. It can move things. That's exactly right. So can wind push things? Can wind move things? I think that is the perfect main idea of those pages. So I'm going to write that right here. Wind can move things. It can move things by pushing them. It can move things by knocking them over. It can move them by just making them sway, right? So those pages told us that wind can move things. It can move them hard. It can move them soft, but it can move things. Now, let's go to our next set of pages. Our next set of pages is the end of the book. And I want you to tell me something that you learned from the end of this book, okay? So we're going to read pages 24 through 27, okay? So I want you to listen as I read. Wind brings changes in the weather. Rainstorms blow in with the wind and out again as the wind pushes the clouds along. Weather forecasters want to know where the wind is coming from so they can see what weather it will bring. We name winds according to the direction from which they come. A west wind blows from the west, and there are east winds and north winds and south winds. In some parts of the world, people have given special names to the winds that blow there. A Chinook is the wind that blows from the Rocky Mountains of the United States. A Chinook is so warm that in the winter it can melt deep snow in just a few hours. So if you look closely, you'll see the girl who's sledding, who's got her sleeves pushed up, and she's standing in what looks like a puddle. So it looks like a Chinook has just blown in. And then Sirocco is a hot, dry wind that blows from northern Africa. So here you can see that the camel and the man walking in the desert, they're actually walking against the wind, that hot, dry Sirocco, right? So now what did we learn? What did we learn about the wind in those pages? Yes, there are different types of winds, right? A north wind, a south wind, an east wind, a west wind, right? There are different types of winds. That's right. What else did we learn? Okay, so what about this? Because there are different types, what does that wind do? Hunter actually asked a really good question the other day about that. He asked, how do winds move the clouds? And he found the answer to that. So in there, he saw that winds can move storm clouds in, and then the rain falls. And then the wind can go ahead and push them out. So can wind move the clouds? Yes. So can it bring good weather? Yes. Can it bring bad weather? Yes. So wind can bring weather, right? All right, let's see. What else did we learn? Yeah, that there are names for those types of wind. Was it a Sirocco? Is that hot, dry wind that blows in the desert? So I imagine it blowing all that sand and that man and the camel's face. And then a Chinook is one of those winds that blows in, and when it's really cold and there's so much snow, it's such a warm wind that all of a sudden it melts the snow in just hours. So what do all of these things that we just talked about have in common? It all has to do with the wind, yes. And the different types of wind can change what? The weather. Those different wind types can change the weather. Very good. So I'm going to write different winds can change the weather. Ooh, it's getting hard to write on this little bitty board. Okay, so I now was able to use my details from the parts of the story to say, yes, our whole book is about wind, and here's how I know. These are the things that I learned. I learned that you can use your senses to see, hear, and feel the wind. I learned that wind is made when hot air rises and cold air falls down. And so when those change places, wind happens. I learned that wind can move things. It can knock things over, or it can just let leaves sway in the wind. I also learned that different winds can bring different weather. It can bring hot weather. It can bring warm weather. It can bring stormy weather. So all of these details helped me to figure out that, yes, all of our book was about the wind, and here are the things that we learned about the wind. You all did an amazing job finding the main idea of our story. So what we're going to do next week is we're going to use 2 more sources to find out what does wind do during a hurricane. Remember, Tuesday we looked at the picture, the illustration, and we looked at the page in the book. Those were 2 sources. Well, this time we're going to watch a video and read another source. We're going to read another article and get something out of our book. We're going to use 3 sources to figure out what the wind does during a hurricane.